Okay, thank you. Okay, it is approximately 2:03 on April the 8th of 2024, and I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. Madam Secretary, do we have a roll call?
Darren Balaam,
Present.
Scott Benton,
Present.
Shelley Buchanan, Sarah Darby,
Here.
Elizabeth Flores,
Here.
Jessica Goicoechea,
Present.
Rhonda Lawrence will be absent today, Leanne McCauley Larson,
Here.
Sarah Porter will be absent today, Paige Samples,
Here.
Natalie Sanchez,
Here.
Scott Codwell, and Misty Vaughn Allen will also be absent today, and Annie Zucker.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With that, we will go into item 1.03, our Pledge of Allegiance. And I've asked Associate Chief Baker to lead us today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And that takes us into item 2, which is our items for presentation, discussion, information, and our action. Item 2.01 is the approval of our minutes from March 4th, 2024, from the meeting of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. This is for possible action.
Jessica Goicoechea, for the record, I move that we approve the minutes for the March 4th, 2024 meeting of Safe and Healthy Schools Commission as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Goicoechea. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sanchez. Any public comment on this item? Sylvia, any public comment on this item?
No, no public comment.
Any comments from commissioners on the action we're about to take? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.02 is the presentation recognizing Officer Marlena Buca-Hawley, who recently completed her field training and is now the campus officer at Proctor R. Hugg High School, and Shauna Baker, who was recently promoted to Deputy Chief of the Washoe County School District School Police Department. Chief Moore, I believe this is your item. Welcome.
Welcome, Chairman and committee members. I just
Hold
wanted
on, we can't hear you.
talk.
There you go.
There you go. We're lit up now. Hopefully you guys can hear me online. So thank you for taking the time to recognize we have some movement in our department. I wanted to bring to everybody's attention and take a little bit of your time, but thank you, Chairman and committee members. The first we have I'll bring up is Officer Holly, and she can come up here and introduce you. Holly comes to us almost 7 years of law enforcement experience. Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. But yes, she was a transfer to us from the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and has been a great addition to our team. She's completed her successful training program, and she's now going to be assigned to our high school campus. I took a tour with the campus, and it just brings me great pleasure to tell you that how much the students respect her and her partner O'Brien at the campus. But if you have anything, Holly, you want to say to the group, but this is a big step in law enforcement, so now she's on her own working at our Hugg High School campus.
I just want to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity. I look forward to working at Hugg High School and also working with our partners in the area of Sparks and Washoe County as well. Thank you.
Welcome.
We gotta do this kind of.
All right, and then one last one for you. I'll let you get started off your meeting. So, as you know, before Chief Trevino, Deputy Chief Price have retired, I was selected to become your next Chief of School Police. I had another position to fill, and through a long interview process, through that, I'd like to bring up former Sergeant Baker, now our Deputy Chief Shauna Baker. Shauna comes to us Shauna comes to us with 17 years of law enforcement, and once again, Sheriff Bam, I can't say I stole her from you. We stole her from our neighboring police agency. But yeah, so Shauna comes with a great diversity background, and I'm looking forward to having her on my team with her leadership skills and abilities. I'm really excited to continue to move this school district forward as a leading law enforcement agency in our public education system and a regional partner. So I think Shauna had her, okay, I was gonna have her, Associate Chief Baker, I'm trying to think of what's the appropriate way to throw this in here, but it was funny, when you said Associate Chief, I was like, no, she's the Deputy Chief. But I was gonna have her in the badge on it. Okay, so, perfect.
I got a good practice in though.
We had a plan, it's all good.
Yeah.
You have a couple words you want to say?
I just want to say thank you all. I look forward. It's an honor and a privilege to continue to serve, the community, our students, our staff, our families, and all of the work that you all do for us. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Congratulations. And while they're taking pictures, I'll talk briefly about why the pinning ceremony is not happening today. We used to do it here with the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission, but the Board of Trustees has asked for that to happen at their meeting. So the formal pinning ceremony with her family will happen, I think she said April 23rd, so if you want to come back and support her, then you certainly can.
Yeah, so thanks for the time. Spring break was a crunch, and I was in a hurry to get a second in command to help me out through this process of moving forward. But thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it.
Yes.
I just want to make a note that Shelley Buchanan has joined our
Awesome.
meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations to both of you. We're excited to have both of you on the team. Our next item is item 2.03, which is the presentation and discussion of anti-bullying efforts in student activities and athletics, including trainings provided to coaches and students to prevent bullying. This is for presentation and discussion only. And before I get her title wrong, we're going to invite Judy Kreutzmann up, and she is the Washoe County School District Director of Civil Rights. Welcome, Judy.
Hello, thank you for having me back to focus on this topic. And my name is Judy Kreutzmann, Director of Civil Rights Compliance. And this presentation mostly addresses bullying by athletic coaches. I know student activities is also part of the presentation. And we do also address bullying by any staff member who's an advisor, for example, in student activities, but this is primarily focused on our athletic coaches.
Judy, before you continue, to those of you that are on Teams, can you see her presentation?
No, we cannot. I can't see it.
Okay. It was emailed out, correct, Sylvia?
Yes.
Okay. Since it was emailed out, we'll go ahead and continue while IT continues to provide us some amazing support. Judy, back to you.
Okay.
Go into Teams.
So you will need the next slide, please.
You have the clicker.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Perfect.
And it may not work while they're trying to get it presenting on Teams.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's on. Okay. So then share screen. Yeah. Oh no, it's whichever one. It's her presentation.
Annie, are you able to see that now?
No, it's okay though, we can follow along
Okay.
the files that you sent.
Right,
Perfect.
I'll
Exactly.
just let you know what page we're on, so. Going to page number 2, of course, this is our Washoe County School District promise, and I like to always remind everyone that I'm presenting to that I think the work that we do in the Civil Rights Compliance Department very much so supports our students' need to be respected and feel safe, which of course is part of our Washoe County School District promise. On to page number 3 of the presentation. So we have an administrative regulation, 5702, that addresses staff on student bullying. That's, the whole regulation talks about the process and our policies, which essentially mirror the legal requirements. Our NRS chapter 388 identifies the responsibilities of every school district for creating a safe and respectful learning environment, and so this regulation accomplishes that specifically with regard to any incidents. When I say bullying, this encompasses cyberbullying, incidents that are discrimination based on race and retaliation are all forms of prohibited conduct by our staff members. And so this does specifically include any staff members who are coaches, volunteers in our classrooms, as well as part-time staff. And so the regulation identifies the different responsibilities by the school administrators, who always remain responsible when we are investigating any allegation of bullying by a staff member. The administrator remains responsible for ensuring the safety of any involved students, communicating with the parents and guardians of the involved students. And it is also the administrators who are responsible for requesting a district level investigation. We have a form called a request for, it's a confidential request for investigation form. We call it a CRIF here in the district. And the administrator at the school site makes that request, and it comes into the office of the general counsel, which is where my department resides, and then gets reviewed and approved, in most cases approved for investigation, and at that point gets handed off to one of our administrative investigators to investigate the allegations. We currently have 2 administrative investigators who are employed full-time by the district, and then we have an additional external investigator who is on contract with the district to conduct these investigations. I pulled together some data just to give you an idea of the numbers that we're looking at for these requests for investigations that come in. So last full school year, there were 7 alleged incidents of this is specific to athletic coaches, not staff on student. Generally, that number is larger, but of those requests for investigations of staff on student bullying, 7 of those involved athletic coaches in our schools, and of those 7 last school year, there were 3 that were found to be substantiated. And then this school year so far, of course we still have a few more months left, but we have investigated 9 allegations of athletic coach bullying of students, and 3 of those were substantiated. So when there is a substantiated allegation of bullying by one of our athletic coaches, our office works closely with labor relations to then determine what, if any, consequences, discipline would be appropriate. Many of our athletic coaches are volunteer and not subject to the collective bargaining agreement provisions regarding progressive discipline, and so therefore in most, but not all cases, if there has been a substantiated allegation of bullying, that will likely result in the dismissal of that coach from the coaching position. Now, when we have an athletic coach who also is working as one of our classified staff employees on a full-time basis, there may still be a dismissal from the coaching position, but of course that staff member would be allowed to continue working as one of our teachers, for example, so long as those allegations did not flow over into the other position that individual holds. And the type of conduct that we're typically seeing when these allegations come in are allegations that are fortunately don't involve any physical kind of contact between coaches and students. It's more frequently what we would call verbal abuse, use of profanity, yelling, also belittling or ridiculing of the student athletes.
Judy, can you stop there for some questions,
Sure.
if you don't mind? Vice Chair Sanchez has a question, and then I would like to ask a question as well.
Okay.
I was just curious if you had any data about how that compares nationally. Is that pretty typical in terms of a school district at our size, or atypical?
That's a really good question, thank you. I do not have data that looks comparatively at other types of school districts. I do throw out a statistic as part of my training, which I'll be talking here in a minute, that I present to coaches, that says that approximately, and this was just from sort of I think it was Alfred University had done a survey about 8 years ago of high school level student athletes and bullying and misconduct by their coaches. And the data they came up with was that approximately 70% of all student athletes feel unsafe in their sport of choice. I think anecdotally, just speaking and also looking at our data, our numbers are much less than that, fortunately. But I throw that out there just to remind coaches that that's a really sad statistic, and they're in a really good position to sort of make sure that doesn't happen. That percentage that was in that survey was speaking not only to bullying type of conduct by coaches, but also by fellow student athletes in their sport. So we do ask the coaches to also, obviously they're mandatory reporters of any kind of bullying that's going on between students. We talk to them a lot about that.
Great question. The question I have for you is, of those substantiated cases, is there within the policy 5702 a threshold of when it turns into a criminal act and law enforcement gets involved? Or?
Thank you for that question. That's not really identified in the administrative regulation 5702. Those types of criminal conduct is of course identified by our state laws regarding crimes, and there's some obvious things that would kind of cross over into the criminal threshold, such as an assault or battery. I do discuss during my training the difference between hazing between players that would be considered bullying type of misconduct versus criminal hazing in the state of Nevada, which involves physical harm or a threat of physical harm. And so when that type of misconduct is present in the facts that we see presented in a request for an investigation, certainly school police or local law enforcement would get involved. And typically, my experience has been by the time an allegation, we become aware of the allegation in the Department of Civil Rights Compliance, typically school police or other law enforcement has already been involved. And our regulation does, and the state law, does allow for a pause, essentially, of the administrative investigation pending any kind of criminal or law enforcement investigation, so that we don't cross over and interfere with that investigation.
Thank you for that. Sylvia, can you check to see if there's any hands raised on our friends that are on Teams?
Yeah.
Anybody that's attending virtually, do you have any questions for Judy?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have data on those allegations that do not reach your office, to like the numbers of allegations that go through the channels that don't reach your office? And then my second question is, once something reaches your office, what determines whether it's an internal investigation or an external investigation?
Judy, before you answer, Annie, is that you? Commissioner Zucker?
Yes, sorry, this is Annie Zucker.
Thank you, just so that we can be clear on the record. Go, Brooke.
Okay, sure. Okay, well, we have trained our administrators to, or asked them and trained them to submit any allegation of staff on student bullying, whether it's coaches, teachers, administrators. Those are now supposed to be investigated always by the district level investigators. So there could be incidents out there that, for whatever reason, an administrator does not determine really rises to the level of what we would call bullying, and they are asked to do sort of a pre-screening and ask, you know, if this is conduct that, if true, would not be considered bullying, then they can keep that investigation at their school site. You know, we do get some requests for investigation of the types of conduct that are more related to, let's say, a parent's discontent with playing time. And those are tough because sometimes there is some retaliatory conduct that's happening. It's not warranted. A lot of times it's just what it is. You know, why aren't you playing my student more? And they're sitting on the bench too much. So we do ask the administrator to kind of screen that out. So these allegations of any kind of bullying by coaches really should rise to the level of getting reviewed and investigated by our district level investigators. And the second question, I think, had to do with how we determine whether our internal staff investigators review or investigate versus the external. And that's really just based on caseload and distribution amongst our investigators. We really don't necessarily distinguish between our external investigator and our internal investigators with regard to who gets assigned what kind of cases. It's really just, you know, what does everyone's caseload look like right now? So that we can make sure that obviously these bullying investigations get reviewed and investigated as quickly as possible.
So to be clear, this is Annie again for the record. So we don't have numbers on how many reports of bullying have gone through the principal or gone through the school first, that have been handled by the school, I guess the question is.
Right. Well, and again, you know, as I said, if they've determined it would not be something that actually, if true, would be considered bullying, then you know, they wouldn't really be reporting it as a. I mean, obviously you get reports, right? And the training that I provide to our administrators is just because somebody says it's bullying doesn't mean it's always bullying, but the reverse is also true as well, right? You don't have to say the word bullying for it to be bullying. But, so you're wondering just, you know, how many...
Well, I guess I believe the language that we have is intent to bully. And I'm wondering if you could explain the definition of intent to bully versus bully.
Well, again, I think, you know, the intent to bully, you know, bully has a specific definition in the law, and then within the district, and this is all outlined in that Administrative Regulation 5702, we have created what we call the 3-point criteria. So we look at 3 things, and the first one is, was there harm to the student? The second one is, was that conduct by the coach in this case unwelcome by the student? And then the third one was it severe, pervasive, or persistent? And you know, that is obviously something that you know, there's a subjective and an objective element to that, but you know, the intent to bully would necessarily require an intent to do something that we would define as bullying, which is, you know, specifically targeting that student for really no other reason than to belittle, demean, diminish, verbally attack, or discriminate against based on that student's personal characteristic. I mean, every case is different, and obviously it is entirely possible that there are some things that we do not hear about, that the school site has decided to screen out. But I will say that sometimes when that has happened, we will eventually hear about it. Parents who are not feeling that their requests or their needs are being met at the school site do have a way of finding their way to my department. And so we typically hear about it, and then we go back and we circle back with the school and check in and see, did you know about this? What have you done? Where are you at? And many times at that point, it's appropriate for our district level investigation to take place, to demonstrate that a thorough, unbiased investigation has occurred.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we ask Judy to move on? All right. Oh, Zara. I have a question. Her hand is up. Zara.
Hi, I was just wondering if there was a different procedure when it's like physical bullying, if that makes sense.
Thank you for the question. Well, if there was physical bullying involved, I would imagine that would be something that would probably most likely rise to the level of getting school police involved or local law enforcement. But as far as, all the other responsibilities the administrator would have in order to create a safety plan, that would really be very, very important, obviously. If we had some sort of physical bullying happening. So my answer is basically not very different. We still have some things that have to take place in any situation where a student's being bullied. Most importantly, making sure that they feel safe both emotionally and physically. I just think that in a physical situation, we would much more likely have some sort of law enforcement involvement. And then perhaps in that case,
Sure.
be sort of waiting until the administrative investigation takes place after law enforcement gets done. Oh, and I guess I should also add, what would most likely become different in that kind of situation is that most likely the staff member, the coach, would be placed on leave. That's typically, and in many cases, with any of our staff on student bullying, if we have a situation where we are concerned about the physical safety of our students while the investigation is pending, that individual would be placed on administrative leave with pay, of course, if they're a paid employee. And that is different from our other typical investigations.
Thank you for that. All right, we're going to bring the presentation back up and continue on.
Okay, so let's see, we are now move on to page.
What page are you on?
Oh, what happened?
Sorry.
We're gonna go on to page 5. Did I lose control?
Yeah. Page 5? Okay. You should be going now. Come on. Resume. It's bouncing everywhere. It's not going. I clicked on it.
Please bear with us as we navigate through technology. Okay, right, for those following along, we're on page 5.
Thank you. So we do mandatory coach training, and I or somebody else in the office when I'm unable to conduct this in-person training done by season. And so last year, for example, or I'll say this school year, I did conduct 9 sessions and we reached 807 coaches total. Now, we have a lot of coaches, as you can imagine, who come back year after year after year. Some of our coaches have been coaching with us for over 10 years, and so they've been attending this in-person training for many years in a row, and so we're shifting next year. We are going to shift to a training schedule that will require our coaches to attend the in-person training every 3 years, which is consistent with adult learning capacity. And then in addition to that, every single year that a coach is not attending in-person training, they will be required to view a refresher training every year and acknowledge that they have reviewed that information. And the topics that are covered in that training, it's not only the laws and the policies that address all kinds of bullying, cyberbullying, hazing, harassment, etc. But I also discuss the mandatory reporting obligations, which of course is related to bullying. I really want to make sure that the coaches know that they are required to report any kind of student-on-student bullying that's occurring on their teams. And they also have an obligation to report any bullying that they observe happening by a co-coach. And then we also review some of the legal hot topics for coaches, including their ethical obligations to keep their private business interests separate from the work that they're doing for the school district. Trying to think, we also talk quite a bit about the use of rubrics during tryouts, because that is an area that can create some issues or even litigation that we've observed in the past. As you know, coaches appear to be conducting their tryouts and selecting students for their teams based on impermissible subjective reasons, then they can get in trouble for that. So we talk a lot about what it means to have objective rubrics, things like that. And then I was asked to briefly discuss the kind of student athlete training that's conducted. So the district is required to train all students on topics of bullying and harassment. We have a board policy 5700 that touches on this. And then we also had a compliance audit that was conducted in the school district. Gosh, it was almost 10 years ago maybe. But we have a resolution agreement that we entered into that requires us to conduct this training. Currently, we have a curriculum called the Civil Rights and Me curriculum, which is appropriate for middle school age and high school age students. That unfortunately has not been really consistently delivered to our students. We kind of lost some momentum with the pandemic, and we're kind of revisiting how that's being used and talking to our schools about getting that back online for our students. But then also, we just recently had some funding approved by the Board of Trustees to provide some bullying training. We identified a vendor who produces some